Most people think the top 1% are different because they were born with more money, more talent, more luck, more connections. And sure, those things help, but they're not what create the 1%. Because behind every fortune, every empire, every seemingly overnight success, there's something deeper, a way of thinking, a mindset that most people will never touch, not because it's out of reach, but because it's buried under distraction, ego, fear, and noise. The top 1% don't just do different things. They think differently about time, about failure, about money, about effort, about control, about the world. They see opportunities where others see obstacles. They make moves when others make excuses. They play long-term games in a short-term world. And when you start to adopt that lens, you stop living like a consumer and start moving like a creator. This isn't about becoming rich overnight. This isn't about get-rich-quick hacks, pretending to be a billionaire, or cosplaying success on social media. It's about something deeper than hustle. It's about mental architecture. Because if your mindset isn't built for scale, sustainability, and emotional control, no amount of external success will ever last. That's why the top 1% don't just chase money. They build leverage. They manage energy. They understand systems. They use time like a weapon. And perhaps most importantly, they think independently. Especially when the crowd is loud. They don't just follow trends. They set them. So what does it take to think like them? It's not about copying tactics. It's about understanding principles. It's about upgrading your mental operating system. And in this video, we're going to unpack 5 powerful mindset shifts that separate the top 1% from everyone else. Not theories, not cliches, but specific mental rewirings that, once adopted, can transform the way you see your work, your goals, and yourself. And the best part? You don't need a trust fund, a fancy degree, or a million followers to start thinking like the top 1%. You just need a willingness to unlearn the noise, to question what you've been taught about success, and to think in ways that feel uncommon because they are. Let's begin. The average person works for money. The top 1% build systems that make money work for them. This is the difference that separates those who stay stuck in the grind from those who eventually buy their time back completely. Most people think wealth comes from working harder, more hours, more hustle, more effort. And yes, hard work matters, but the top 1% knows something most don't. If your income is directly tied to your hours, your earning power will always be limited. Time is a trap if you let it be. There are only 24 hours in a day. If you're a freelancer, a consultant, a 9-to-5 employee, or even a high-paid professional, you may make a good living. But you'll hit a ceiling because you're still trading time for money. The moment you stop working, the money stops flowing. That's not wealth. That's high-class dependence. Now compare that to the top 1% mindset. They build assets. They create leverage. They generate income streams that operate independently of their time. They own things, businesses, systems, intellectual property, investments, that continue to grow even while they sleep. What does leverage look like? It comes in many forms. Product leverage: write a book once, sell it forever. Build an app once, let users multiply. Media leverage: create a YouTube video once, earn revenue from it for years. People leverage: build a team that works toward a shared goal, not just solo effort. Code leverage: use automation, tools, or software to multiply impact. Capital leverage: invest money in assets that yield consistent returns, stocks, real estate, businesses. The top 1% don't think, how can I earn more per hour? They think, how can I remove myself from the equation entirely? Here's the scary part for most people. Letting go of the time for money model requires letting go of control. It means creating something that might not pay you today, but can scale infinitely tomorrow. It means patience. It means systems. It means delayed gratification. And most people can't handle that. They want the security of a paycheck, the predictability of hours, the comfort of busy, but busy doesn't build wealth. Leverage does. The shift. If you want to think like the top 1%, start asking different questions. How can I build once and sell forever? What can I create that outlives my effort? How do I earn while I sleep, rest, or travel? How can I scale impact without scaling stress? Because time is your most limited resource. The top 1% protect it ruthlessly, not because they're lazy, but because they understand. Money lost can be earned again. Time lost is gone forever. Most people are playing to win. The top 1% are playing to last. That one shift in mindset changes everything. We live in a world obsessed with scoreboards. Who made the most this year? Who went viral? Who hit 7 figures first? But the top 1%, they're not playing for applause. They're playing the long game. They understand something simple but profound. Finite games are about beating others. Infinite games are about outlasting yourself. What's the difference? A finite game has an end. A winner, a loser, a finish line. Think of sports, tests, short-term goals. You push, compete, hit the mark, and then it's over. But an infinite game? There's no end. No final scoreboard. Just sustainability, evolution, and staying in the game as long as possible. The top 1% don't optimize for next month's income. They optimize for next decade's freedom. They don't care about beating the competition today. They care about building so deeply and wisely that the competition becomes irrelevant. Why most people burn out? Because they're sprinting, chasing growth hacks, trying to win social media, trying to be seen, trying to arrive. But in trying to win so quickly, they build things that are fragile. A business that depends on their constant energy, a lifestyle built on debt and appearance, a mind that cracks under pressure because it was never trained for the long road. The top 1% see through that. They don't rush. They design. Infinite players ask different questions. How can I build something that sustains even when I'm gone? How do I make sure my systems, not just my talent, are what drive results? How do I take care of my health, relationships, and peace because I'll need them 10 years from now? How can I keep learning and adapting, not just peaking and fading? They're not trying to dominate the moment. They're trying to master momentum, and that's a huge difference. Infinite players are terrifying. Why? Because you can't rattle them with short-term loss. They'll walk away from bad deals. They'll sacrifice speed for quality. They'll pass on instant fame to protect long-term reputation. They move slower but more deliberately. They rest when needed. They say no more often. They aren't reactive. And that kind of presence is rare in a world sprinting toward burnout. The shift: if you want to think like the top 1%, stop asking, how fast can I grow? And start asking, how long can I last and how deeply can I build? Because at the end of the day, most people are running toward the wrong finish line. But the 1%, they've already outgrown the race. They're too busy building something that outlives the scoreboard. 3. Failure. It's the word that stops most people before they even begin. The fear of looking foolish. The fear of wasting time. The fear of trying something big and falling short. But the top 1%? They don't just tolerate failure. They use it. They invite it. They build through it. Because they understand something powerful. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the raw material success is made of. The average mindset? For most people, failure equals embarrassment, shame, setback, confirmation that maybe I'm not cut out for this. So they avoid it at all costs. They play small. They choose safety over scale. They'd rather not try than risk trying and failing. But that mindset leads to a fragile life, one that's built on fear management, not possibility expansion. The top 1% see failure differently. To them, failure is feedback. It's data. It's direction. It's the most honest teacher there is. They don't personalize failure. They extract from it. What worked? What didn't? What's the pattern? What does this reveal about the system, not my self-worth? They don't let ego get in the way of iteration. They're obsessed with improvement, not perfection. Why this matters? If you're allergic to failure, you'll never innovate. You'll avoid discomfort. You'll abandon too early. You'll take one rejection as a prophecy instead of a pivot point. But if you rewire your relationship with failure, everything opens up. Because now you can. Launch without overthinking. Learn faster than everyone else. Recover without emotional drama. Try 10 things and find the one that works, while others are still stuck planning the first. The top 1% succeed more than others, not because they're smarter, but because they're willing to fail more often and faster. Failure without shame. Imagine this shift. Instead of thinking, I failed, so I must not be good at this, you think, I failed, which means I'm doing real work. What can I learn? That's emotional freedom. It's how you keep building while others quit. It's how you keep experimenting while others stall. It's how you keep moving when others stay frozen in fear. The shift. To think like the top 1%, you must detach your identity from your outcomes. You are not your results. You are your resilience. You are your ability to adapt, evolve, and stay in motion. The faster you can fail, learn, and relaunch, the more unstoppable you become. Because while others are avoiding failure, you're using it as your greatest form of leverage. What if I told you that one small, smart decision could create 100x more value than someone else's entire year of effort? That's not fantasy. It's asymmetry, and it's the mindset that the top 1% live by. In simple terms, asymmetric thinking means seeking outcomes where the potential upside is massive, but the downside is limited or manageable. Most people work 1 hour, get paid for 1 hour. Put in X, get back X. Effort equals reward. The top 1% don't think in lines. They think in leverage curves. What does that look like? Here's a simple example. Let's say you spend 6 months building a digital product, a course, an app, a book. That time investment is real. It costs effort, energy, maybe money. But once it's built, it can scale to thousands of customers. It can earn money while you sleep. It can grow with zero additional input. That's asymmetric. Compare that to trading time for hourly pay over and over again. Same time spent, very different outcomes. The top 1% look for bets like this everywhere. Startups, high risk, but the upside, exponential. Investments. One good bet can outperform dozens of average ones. People. One strong relationship can unlock years of opportunity. Content. One video, tweet, or blog post can change your entire career. Audience. One nudge community can drive massive, consistent income. They're not looking to work harder. They're looking to amplify smart decisions. Most people miss this. Why? Because they're afraid of risk. They want guaranteed outcomes, predictable results. They'd rather play it safe than bet big and risk looking foolish. But the irony is, playing it safe often costs you more in the long run. Because linear returns don't compound. And playing not to lose means you'll never truly win. Asymmetry is everywhere if you know how to look. It might be writing that one bold email that lands a dream client, creating content that lives forever instead of doing cold outreach every day, partnering with someone who opens doors you couldn't access alone, saying yes to a scary opportunity with high upside and manageable risk. The top 1% think like investors, even in daily life. They're not gambling. They're calculating. The shift. Stop asking, what's the safest thing I can do? And start asking, where's the biggest upside with the least irreversible downside? Because one asymmetric move can change everything. And when you start stacking those, you stop chasing income and start building impact. That's how the top 1% move faster with less effort. Not because they do more, but because they think smarter. Most people are mentally exhausted before the day even begins. They wake up and immediately check messages, scroll through headlines, consume 30 different opinions before they've even made their bed. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed, anxious, stuck, or behind. But the top 1%? They guard their minds like it's their most precious asset because it is. They know that mental bandwidth is not unlimited. And if you waste it on noise, you won't have any left for signal. The economy of attention. In today's world, your attention is currency. Everyone wants a piece of it. Apps, algorithms, people, platforms. They're designed to hijack your focus, distract your thoughts, and leave you reactive. But if you let that happen, you lose the game before it even begins. Because you can't do deep work with a shallow mind. You can't create clarity in a cluttered head. You can't build wealth if you're mentally bankrupt. How the 1% think about attention? To them, mental bandwidth is prime real estate. Only the most important energy-rich things get space. They ruthlessly eliminate distractions, automate or delegate repetitive decisions, say no to most opportunities, block time for focus, silence, and thinking, design their environments to reduce noise and resistance. They don't try to do more. They do less better because they know it's not how much you do in a day. It's how deeply you can think and act from clarity. Why this matters? Your brain was not built to hold 50 open loops. Notifications, messages, obligations, people's opinions, news, algorithms. Most people live in a constant state of cognitive fog. But the top 1%? They clear the fog before they work. They don't start the day from anxiety. They start it from intentionality. And that one shift changes the quality of everything they touch. What mental bandwidth killers look like? Multitasking, doom scrolling, people-pleasing, reacting to messages all day, not knowing your priorities, not protecting your mornings, comparing yourself to strangers online. The top 1% don't try to resist these things all day. They design them out of their lives. They don't rely on discipline. They rely on systems. The shift. If you want to think like the top 1%, start asking, what do I need to remove to think more clearly? What's stealing my attention that doesn't deserve it? When am I most focused, and how can I protect that window like my life depends on it? Am I starting my day from reaction or creation? Because if you don't control your focus, someone else will. And the people who move the world? They're not the ones who hustle the most. They're the ones who protect their clarity and act from it every day. Let's pause for a moment. We just walked through 5 powerful shifts, each one designed not to imitate the top 1%, but to understand how they move, how they think, how they build. And if there's one truth that ties it all together, it's this. The top 1% didn't get there by accident. They got there by thinking differently, on purpose. They didn't settle for reactive habits. They chose intentional ones. Let's recap what you've learned. They don't trade time for money. They build leverage, they own systems, they scale beyond effort. They play infinite games. They optimize for longevity, not quick wins. They play to stay in the game. They rewire failure. They don't fear it. They study it. They turn it into feedback and fuel. They obsess over asymmetry. They make small bets with huge upside and protect their downside like pros. They protect mental bandwidth. They curate what enters their mind like a fortress, not a freeway. None of this is about being born rich. None of this is about luck. None of this requires you to have millions in your bank account. It starts with how you see, how you decide, how you prioritize, how you think. So now the real question is, are you willing to unlearn the thinking that's kept you stuck and start building the kind of mind that unlocks real, sustainable wealth? Not because you want to impress anyone, but because you're tired of living beneath your potential. Because here's the truth most people never hear. You don't have to be in the top 1% to think like them. But if you start thinking like them, you just might become one of them. Quietly, deliberately, powerfully, not overnight. But over time, you don't need to hustle harder. You just need to upgrade the operating system inside your head. That's where it all starts.